Over the past 75 years, more than 10,000 chemicals have entered our food supply, but the EU allows just 300 additives. At Thrive Market, we prioritize quality, banning over 1,000 ingredients found in conventional grocery stores. Our Healthy Swap scanner helps you find better versions of your pantry essentials, without the junk, dyes, or fillers, and everything is delivered right to your doorstep. So shop at a grocery store that actually cares about your health at thrivemarket.com/getstarted for 30% off your first order and a free $60 gift.
You're listening to Late Night Radio on the SHR Media Network. Caution, there will be mature themes explored and potentially adult language used. If conservatarian words, phrases, certain concepts, or rhetoric offends you, tune out now.
Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike?
You magnificent bastard, I read your book.
I drink your milkshake.
How dare you?
I call that bold talk for a one-eyed fat man.
Fill your hand, you son of a bitch!
Captain.
Captain.
Captain. Captain. Captain. Captain.
Captain.
Captain. Captain. Captain. Captain. Captain. Captain. Captain. Captain. Captain. Captain. Captain.
No, not yet. Not yet. Don't pass out on me yet. Of course you realize this means war. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, where I'm broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, always spelled with a K, a mere 2 miles east of the locus of evil on the entire left coast of the Bill Mill, the belly of the beast, the Capitol building in downtown Sacramento at 10th and L Streets, where late at night you can hear the death of common sense and its concomitant wail as it wafts from that petrifying edifice. And late at night, when I exit the plush, resplendent, sumptuous, palatial, and effulgently bulbous SHR Media studios, I'll be smelling the odoriferous stench of sulfur, brimstone, and evil emanating from that mentally destitute column structure aforementioned. It is 2020. The time is nigh. The epic is now. The leftist madness and fuckery is afoot, and the criticality is imperative. There is no law, rule, tradition, fact, history, logic, rationality, no proportion, context, intent, tradition, no bit of normality that the Democrats, leftists, and American media maggots won't break. kill, slice, mutilate, bury, eliminate, ignore, butcher, threaten, explode, incinerate, throttle, or expunge in order to wrest the reins of power and keep America subjugated in perpetuity for unicorns and fairy farts. Make no mistake, 2020 is not about Democrats and Republicans. It's instead about the fight against socialism and ultimately communism. We stand to lose this country not from without, but from within, from enemies within, due to the keening and purposely cultivated ignorance of the masses, no less than our U.S. Constitution, its Bill of Rights, and our freedoms and liberties are at stake. And I won't stand by and watch this nation devolve and its values, mores, and morals be cavalierly subsumed by those with absolutely no damned interest or care in her success. Make no mistake, this nation is at a tipping point, because when we fail, the rest of the world follows suit. When freedom and liberty can no longer be found in the United States of America, what nation exists to step up? So tonight in the saloon, it's going to be another, let's see, on Facebook. Hey, hello to Jeremy. Good to see you here. In chat, in SHR Media, we have the Alaskan. Good to see you here, too. I have not, because I have been talking to Sackhead Sean prior to the show. And I should have been dialing up my good friend who's going to be on here the first hour, Jeff DUNETZ. And let's turn up the volume in the headphones, because I'm generally really, really deaf. And I got to be...
Is this you called General Cuomo's Long Island prison?
Yeah. Jeff DUNETZ, do we have a lot of stuff to talk about tonight? So, thank you for being here.
I'm afraid they're going to put me in jail like General Flynn. They're going to try to anyway.
Well, as you and I have said before, and we'll say again, if they can do this, the deep state, the federal government, can do this to a general, well, do you think they would give a moment's thought or notice to you or me or anybody else?
No.
And the answer is not just no, but extra crispy hell no.
You bet.
Before we go on, folks, Jeff DUNETZ is going to be here for the first hour. And Jeff, I thank you very much for being here.
It is all my pleasure. You know I love being with you.
The second hour...
in a platonic sort of way, though.
Right. We keep it above the sheets and above the waist, because that's what good people do. Right. In the second hour, I'm going to pop off with Jeff here, probably in about another 5 minutes. I'm anticipating going 210 over 190. In the second hour, we're going to talk about freedom and law enforcement, and specifically what are the laws. Because again, I'm seeing things. I'm watching law enforcement conduct itself in a way that embarrasses me. And it doesn't just exist on a level of embarrassment. It exists on a level of, do some of you think about what you're doing before you do it, to the point of, or are you just listening to what, I don't know, whoever tells you in your briefings, or do you just push the button on the computer and go to the damn call? And you don't give any further thought to it. I'm afraid, unfortunately, altogether, oh my God. And the story for tonight is, for having that philosophy on a number of law enforcement sites, I am persona non grata. But enough of that. We'll talk to Jeff right here. Folks, I want to tell you where you can go to get some of the finest content on the internet. And this guy has his own blog. I've known Jeff since 2004, specifically because that's when I pulled up my blog, and that's when we began communicating back and forth. Go to lidblog.com, all one word, lid, L-I-D, blog, B-L-O-G.com. And Jeff posts there 3, 4, 5 times a day. So it's not like you're going to a blog and wondering, well, when's the last post? And then you look down, and his last post was February of 2013. No, that's not how Jeff functions. Jeremy in chat and Facebook says, hey, what's up, brother? Jeremy, thanks for watching. No, Jeff is not like that. Not at all. So we've got a bunch of stories that I want to talk about tonight that Jeff wrote. And then I want to get into some things that have to deal with New York, because Jeff is, for those of you who have not heard Jeff before, a great guy, lives in New York, knows what New York is like, doesn't live in New York City itself, but is very, very familiar with New York politics, the state thereof. And so what I want to do is go over some of Jeff's articles and then go into some more recent stories. Before we get to New York, and I'm looking here, and you may have updated your blog, Jeff. Let me look at your blog, but I don't see it. There's a story. Oh, yeah, you did just update your blog. See, in between the time that I left to come to the studio, Jeff has another story.
Sorry.
But there's a story.
You know, I was up, so I wrote.
Why not? It's 8. What is it here? It's 8:10 on the left coast, on the Pacific coast, which means it's 11:10 on the far right coast.
That's right.
And in Bolivia, it's 1749.725 subcluster 3, Grote cluster 2 in Bolivian time. I never did understand really Bolivian time, but there's
in New York and in New Jersey, it's 6:45.
Yeah. Here's a partial score, Green Bay 4. And this story just came out. And
well, actually, it wasn't my story, but
no, it wasn't. It wasn't your story, but this one lit me up today. Once I go over it, then I want to hear your take on this. This happens to be from Gizmodo, but a bunch of different outlets already covered this. But I chose it because of the point of the article. The headline says, "Here's who just voted to let the FBI seize your online search history without a warrant." And I was listening to Rand Paul today, who did not vote for this. So let me go back a little bit, give you who are not aware of what just happened today some background. A bipartisan amendment that would have prohibited law enforcement agencies, like the FBI, from obtaining the web browsing and internet search histories of Americans without a warrant failed to pass in the U.S. Senate on Wednesday by a single vote. Okay, so voting yes on this would have prohibited the FBI from obtaining your personal data, web browsing, and internet search histories without a warrant. So, to translate, the FBI and other law enforcement agencies can get your web browsing and internet search histories without a warrant. I saw that, and the first thing I thought of, first I went 210 over 190. The reason I did is because when I was in law enforcement, I retired in 2016. I was in every place you can think of in law enforcement, including detectives. So while I was in detectives, it's critical that you get search warrants and arrest warrants. And I have a very strong philosophy on that. And my philosophy is, to everyone in law enforcement, if I had to do this, you should have to do this too. I had to play by the rules. Everyone should play by the rules. 27 Republicans and 10 Democrats voted against this amendment to H.R. 6172, which will reauthorize lapsed surveillance powers under the FISA Act, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. So the amendment was written by Ron Wyden, Democrat, he's in Oregon, and Steve Raines, Republican, out of Montana. and would have forced the government to get a warrant before obtaining the internet search history of Americans. To me, that seems perfectly rational and logical. So I calmed down. And I listened, just before I got here, I was listening to some cable shows. And I listened to Rand Paul saying that I was apparently the lone voice in the wilderness. So I've calmed down now because I've left my house and I've come to the studio. About an hour or more has intervened. Jeff DUNETZ of lidblog.com. Do you have any thoughts or concerns about this that occurred today?
Yes. And I have concerns about the whole thing because isn't it the Fifth Amendment that says that that the government has to get a warrant before they do anything with our life, liberty, or pursuit of happiness? Well,
yeah, this just kind of really inconvenient document tends to get in the way. A couple of pages, the Constitution, then there was something called the Bill of Rights that got thrown in there. And, sometimes you can listen to it, and apparently sometimes it doesn't really matter much.
But what you said about 10 minutes ago, okay, is if they could do it to General Flynn, they could do it to any of us.
Right.
And they didn't want to guarantee that they could do it to all of us. It really scares me. And then you have those things where they call the tracking apps, where anybody who has corona, you know where they're going around.
Oh, right.
Okay, and they have people doing that. And it just seems scuzzy to me. You know what I'm saying? Because that's not America. You're not supposed to be able to just track somebody for the heck of it. If you get a corner on them, that's what judges are for.
Well, until the judges don't obey the law, and if we have time, I'd like to get into that story too. And I know you know exactly what story I'm talking about there.
Yeah, the judge, Flynn's judge.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Wyden on the floor of the Senate said that Americans shouldn't have to worry about their government looking over their shoulders. And that's exactly what Jeff just said. The typical American may think to themselves, I got nothing to worry about. I haven't done anything wrong. I would wager the bulk of the people, if you ran that statement by them, would say, yeah, what do I got to worry about? The government doesn't have any reason to suspect me of anything. Why do I have to worry? And then Wyden said, well, unfortunately, the question is not whether you did anything wrong. The question is whether a government agent believes they have the right to look at your web searches.
Thank you.
This is the warrantless collection of Americans' web browsing history. And here's the crux of the biscuit for me. Jeff, I'd want your reaction on this after I mention we've seen what has happened in the past with the FBI and the federal government. We know what's going on now. As Wyden also indicated, this provides, in his and my opinion, endless opportunities for abuse. So the government and the FBI specifically have gone out of their way, in my opinion, to disabuse us, the citizens, of trusting them. I said on Tuesday night, and I was one, never talk to the FBI without a lawyer, because now we see what they do. If they will use a perjury trap, a planned, thought-through perjury trap from the highest level, okayed at the highest level of the FBI, do you think for a moment that they would not consider you swatting you aside like a fly yes. That you are?
And you know what else? They made up stories about the President of the United States. They made up stories, okay? They should get a Pulitzer Prize for drama for what they made up about Trump. And you don't think they won't do that against us?
Oh.
Of course they will. Okay. You know, and I got to tell you something. I grew up with a good respect for the police. okay, and for the law enforcement. That's what I was taught. And in most cases, law enforcement is there protecting my ass and my family's asses. And I really appreciate that. But I've lost over the last 3 years so much respect, not for the agents, but for the big shots at the FBI. Like I want to puke. Okay? It's almost like they've taken, it's like, remember when Nancy Pelosi ripped up the
speech.
State of the Union?
Right.
Well, the FBI and the Democrats ripped up the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, because there's stuff they're not supposed to do. Okay? The whole purpose of the Constitution could be laid out in one phrase. Keep government off my back. Everything else is commentary.
I read this story because it names names. And folks, if this is your senator, this is how they voted. And I'm going to specifically name names. And then, folks, you're going to hear senators in here that my guess would be you thought, well, I thought this guy was or gal was for me. I thought they were for my rights. Yeah. 27, this is the list of senators. 27 Republicans voted against that, or they didn't vote at all. Barrasso, Wyoming, Blackburn, Tennessee, Blunt, Missouri, Bozeman, Burr. No, we'll get to Burr, you dipshit. Capito, Collins, Cornyn, Cotton. I'm disappointed in you, Tom.
Me too. That one hurt.
Graham. I got another bone to pick with Graham. Hyde Smith, Imhoff, Johnson, Lankford, Mitch McConnell, Perdue, Portman, Roberts, Romney, of course, Rubio, Shelby, Thune, Tillis, Toomey, Wicker, Young. All voted against this.
Now, what else did Johnson do yesterday?
That's a good question.
He's the one. Grinnell didn't release the names of people.
Yeah. Go. You bet.
Okay. So, on one hand, he's showing transparency because, look, these people illegally outed. This is government and FBI going behind people's back to spy on General Flynn, right?
Yes.
Okay. But now he's saying, okay, well, see, that's bad, but now the same FBI can do that with us. Kind of seems a little hypocritical to me.
4 members did not cast votes. I might place a couple of these into the church ladies, isn't that convenient category. Like Bernie Sanders didn't cast a vote. Ben Sass of Nebraska didn't cast a vote. Lamar Alexander, Tennessee, didn't cast a vote. Patty Murray, Democrat, Washington, did not cast a vote. To say I am disappointed is a slap in the face to disappointment. Now, allegedly, there's another bill coming. I'll take a wait-and-see attitude on that. But we spoke about Richard Burr, and another thing happened with Richard Burr today. And this, to me, goes into the happy stories category. The FBI seized Senate Intel Chairman Richard Burr's cell phone. Folks, do you remember? Jeff, I don't know. Can you tell the story about what happened with Richard Burr and also with Dianne Feinstein? Feinstein got wrapped up in this thing, too.
Well, yeah, but I think she's getting off. Okay. Burr sat for a preview of what was going to happen with the virus, and it talked about what industries are going to have problems and what industries aren't going to have problems.
Right.
And coincidentally, the next day, he sold off all this stock that before it took a dive.
See now,
because of the virus.
See, that's got to be a coincidence. I'm sure of it.
Well, and then the same thing happened with Miss Fine, not so fine, throw me up, okay? Because her husband sold the stock, but she sat for it. But she sat for an interview, and they didn't recontact her. Burr, he didn't want to talk, and they took his cell phone. Now, you got to understand the hero in all this is Peter Schweitzer.
Oh, I've got 2 of his books.
He wrote a book called Throw 'Em All Out, which was all about how Congress is getting all rich from inside trading.
Right, and also wrote Clinton Cash. Clinton Cash, the book that he wrote, was recommended by various FBI agents to read before doing any investigation on the Clintons. That's how well written that book was. I'm sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah. Anyway, after that, and actually the big one was Nancy Pelosi, but after that, they passed a law that the Senate, that congressmen can be held, charged with insider trading. Before that, they couldn't.
Yeah.
But no one has been.
But
by the way, have you read Profiles in Corruption?
By
Schweitzer.
No, I have not. The last book I did buy was Clinton Cash of his.
Okay, you also got to read Secret Empires, because that's the one where that exposed Biden's son.
Okay, all right.
And actually, what do you call it? Former Secretary of State's stepson, the son of the Ketchup King.
Oh, right.
Right.
JFK.
Huh?
John friggin' Kerry.
Oh, okay. And the thing is that John Kerry's son made a killing in China too.
No. Wait, are you trying to say that politicians are taking advantage of the goodness and largesse of American taxpayers?
Well, look. There's a limit, okay? I think it's fine for a congressman to call someone up and say, legally, not someone that they're trying to look at, to call someone up and say, hey, listen, my son needs a job. Will you interview him? I would do it for anything. But when you're charged with overseeing something, you don't call someone in that industry that you're overseeing to do that. And you don't, if you're looking at Ukraine, if you're the vice president, somebody puts you in charge of cleaning up Ukraine, you don't have your son go work for the Ukraine-owned oil industry. And when they're being investigated by Ukraine's equivalent of attorney general, well, you know what? You don't really go to them and say, stop the investigation, fire the guy, or you don't get $1 billion. I understand the feeling. I would probably kill for my son, but I don't think I would commit fraud for him.
No, but that's okay. One day I want to do a show on all the things that basically the federal government, I should say specifically, senators and congressmen can do that you can't do, and all the perks they get that you will never get.
That would suck. It would make me depressed.
Oh, it's 2 minutes before the bottom of the hour. I'm going to play the break at the bottom of the hour. Folks, if you are just tuning in, I am speaking to Jeff DUNETZ. He lives in the state of New York, a great journalist. You can find his work at lidblog.com. I got about another minute before the break. Jeff, tell folks, by the way, a little bit of your CV. Where have you written, and for whom have you written?
Before I do that, let me do something else instead that'll be really short.
Okay.
At this moment, 72 years ago, Harry S. Truman overruled his Secretary of State, General Marshall, who everybody thought was God, and recognized the State of Israel. It was about 11:30 at night, and Israel had just declared independence. And we were the first country to recognize Israel. And I always say, thank God and thank Harry Truman.
Let's see, 1948?
You got it.
Okay. I remember my history, which for me is kind of unusual because I couldn't tell you what I had for dinner tonight. Oh, that's right. I didn't have any dinner tonight. Folks, talking to Jeff DUNETZ, I am BZ, the bloviating Zeppelin. You're in the saloon. This is BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. We'll be right back, kids, after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Southern Sense is conservative talk with Annie, the radio chick you bellows as host, and C.S. Bennett co-host. Informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey. Annie is a top conservative host on Top Talk Radio and features some of the finest guests packed with important politicians and newsmakers. Listen every Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, noon to 3 Pacific, on the SHR Media Network. Remember, Southern Sense is common sense.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York. The Lid himself, Jeff DUNETZ. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff DUNETZ. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Good evening. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is featured on the SHR Media Network every Tuesday and Thursday night for 2 hours at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific. Whilst manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ continues to radically change the world of leftists, one diaper at a time. Stop balancing your checkbooks. Stop cleaning your fish tanks. The bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is your magnet for truth, justice, obesity, a darkened studio, and late-night freedom. No United States of America freedoms were abridged in the making of this ad.
This is Shannon Wright.
And this is Michael Wright.
Reminding you to listen
to The Right Way with Shannon and Mike.
Every Monday through Thursday.
7 to 9 a.m.
Right here on shrmedia.com.
Join me, Jack Alexander, for the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast, as I take a unique outsider's look at the issues affecting the USA. I fearlessly take on the issues that everyone else is too scared to touch. The Jack Alexander Experiment podcast is available wherever good podcasts can be found, like Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcast. The Jack Alexander Experiment, because it's not a matter of left versus right, it's a matter of right versus wrong.
After 6 years covering terror and corruption, the Unpleasant Blind Guy is making a change. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker and YouTube through SHR Media and on the Western Free Radio Network as I team up with Jeff Mitchell, host of the English Defense Elite radio show on blogtalkradio.com. Check show pages for airtimes. It's the Unpleasant Blind Guy.
On EDL Radio.
There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Featuring the effervescent contrarian Sackheads Clint, plus the unrestrained bulbosity of BZ, the Sackheads Against Tyranny is a real chat show. Doubling your late-night conservative talk show pleasure with double the hosts, you can listen every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. Please note, some contents may have settled during shipping. Member FDIC, batteries not included, warranty void in Montenegro.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And we're back. This is the first hour of BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. I am the aforementioned BZ. I am he as you are me, and we are all together, including Jeff DUNETZ, one each, who's speaking on the Mark I Model 1 teleolophone over electric wires and probably some wireless wires. Those are wires that don't have wires. That's why they're called wireless. Although why they're still called wires, I'm not exactly sure. Anyway, I want to get into...
BZ,
yes, sir.
I just did
sir?
something mean.
Oh, no.
During the break, I did something mean.
Oh, no, what?
Well, Barack Obama tweeted vote, just one word.
Yeah.
So I replied and said, you're right. Vote for President Trump, not for the party of the anti-Semitic former President Obama.
Well, that's an opinion.
Right?
But, now, see, okay, if you were Mark Zuckerberg, what you'd be saying right about now is, hey, Jeff DUNETZ, that's a really nice opinion you got going there. Too bad you're going to lose it.
Well, I've been in Facebook jail for 2 weeks, and I got another 2 weeks in jail.
2 weeks?
A total of a month.
May I ask why? Or do they even tell you why? Do you know, can you say specifically to what article they're linking your jail time?
Well, they never said it, but I believe it's called BWC, Blogging While Conservative.
So they don't name a post. They'll just group you all together over with the yellow bus victims over here. You conservative guys, you can basically all go to hell.
Basically.
Okay.
So, it has affected my traffic, but what are you going to do? I'm not going to kill myself.
No. And folks, that's why I also say, if you go to lidblog.com and like what you see, spread the word around social media.
Please.
Because this is part and parcel. Some people have social media, and this is how they make money. This is how Jeff makes money.
By the way, this thing got so crazy being locked in the house, I almost jumped out the window until my wife reminded me that I was on the first floor.
Yeah, that wouldn't have gone. It wouldn't
have done anything.
Too terribly exciting.
So I turned on Discovery ID and watched somebody else kill somebody.
Yeah, exactly. For a moment, let's talk about Governor Cuomo. What kind of...
Don't you mean Emperor Cuomo?
Yes, Andrew Cuomo. His honor, his Royal Highness, like Governor Newsom, His Royal Highness, Andrew Cuomo. New York had a bunch of unused hospital... Well, first let me ask you this, Jeff. What are the restrictions right now in New York? When can you emerge?
People can't work yet, but if you go outside, you have to wear a face mask. Which for people like, say, Nancy Pelosi, that's a good thing, right? Because who wants to see her face?
No.
But being in the high risk category, because I am a diabetic, and my wife is in the high, it doesn't upset me that much.
Okay.
The things that upset me is like, I want to go to the movies. You feel like you want to go to the movies.
Yeah.
You want to go to a restaurant.
Yeah,
things
I
like
do.
That. Just get out. I'm tired of my own house.
I love movie popcorn. I to the point where
with extra butter.
Oh hell yes, extra butter all day long, mister.
I tell them to give it to me with as much butter that makes you want to throw up. I really do.
Oh, God.
But you know what? You know what I learned about Governor Cuomo through this? He hates old people.
Oh, okay. If you're going to go there, let's go there right now. I completely concur.
He made a rule that if it was an old person with the virus, they couldn't go to the hospital. They had to go to a nursing home, an old age home, and everybody died. It was like he was sentencing them to death.
For a time, about a week and a half ago, I popped off on that to the point where, and folks, this is my opinion, I said I thought Andrew Cuomo was a murderer. He knew what he was doing. So what he did is he sent, at this point in time, the most prevalent virus into an area with the people least able to protect themselves against a virus in nursing homes featuring personnel the least trained to handle that, with those people having the least amount of equipment and training on said equipment, and you didn't expect hundreds and hundreds, because thousands of people were killed right after that. Here's also, what part of any of this makes any sense whatsoever? Okay, New York, and now we're discovering Pennsylvania, targeted the weakest amongst us, the elderly in nursing homes, just like you were saying, Jeff. Yet, simultaneously, the healthiest amongst us are under the harshest restrictions imaginable, proving, as far as I'm concerned, it isn't about science at all. It's about power, as per normal, power, control, and money. And why money, folks? Because leftist governors and mayors, I think, are all talking to each other, saying that if we show that this thing is out and rampant and taking off and cannot be constrained, then that provides us an ample and excellent justification for more money for the states from the federal government.
You know, just to put that in perspective, just in my island of Long, over 1,000 nursing home deaths. In the entire state, almost 6,000 nursing home deaths. Okay? He has a thing against old people. He wanted them to die. I mean, he wouldn't let them go to hospitals. They had to go to nursing homes. Like you said, people not prepared to handle it. With people, at the beginning they didn't take the precautions needed because who knew? Okay, and they were short on doctors. Not like a hospital. So they died. It's almost like he did it for Obamacare, because, Obamacare, the whole death panels.
Right.
They don't need death panels now in New York. They killed them all.
Right.
I had an aunt die.
And see, you can't. Oh, let me get to that in just a second, please. You can't tell me that part and parcel, because they have said so. Certain leftists and Democrats have said, well, Ezekiel Emanuel, for one, has said that people over 75 essentially have no justification for living anymore, including himself, and are no longer productive. And because of their lack of productivity, i.e., they cannot be easily manipulated by leftists and Democrats, progressives, anarchists, etc., they are no longer useful. If they're no longer useful, get them out.
And, say that to somebody when they're 74 years and 11 months.
Yeah. And ask them how they feel about that, Ezekiel, and the death panels. What happened to your aunt?
Well, she caught the bug. And actually, she didn't catch the bug in a nursing home. That's where she died. She caught the bug, we think, because, she had somebody come in and care for her every day.
Right.
We think that the person, because it had to be one of the persons that cared for her, had it, must have had it. Okay, and then and we heard she was doing better, and then we heard she was dead. It was just like that.
Well, the other aspect of it was. Now, were you fairly close to your aunt?
My brother and sister were a lot closer.
Okay.
But it was,
but they couldn't go visit, could they?
My father was one of 5, and my mother was one of 4, and that my aunt was the last one standing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, and she was a good person, and she had a hard life, but it was just like, you don't send somebody to die,
Was she old enough that she lived through the Holocaust?
No.
Okay.
But she lost 2 children, a grandson, and 2 husbands.
Okay.
Okay, she went through hell, okay? And she always had a positive attitude.
An amazing thing in and of itself.
Right.
Folks, if you want to call, we got another 15 minutes before the top of the hour. If you deem to call, it's 575. That's the area code for Roswell, New Mexico. 575-208-4481. If you just tuned in, that's 575-208-4481. For those of you living in Frog Dick, North Dakota, that's 575-208-4481. And if you're on the planet Zephron, use the universal code translator. Still, you'll have to dial 1-575-208-4481. We're here tonight with Jeff DUNETZ. So is the motivation, do you think, Jeff, in New York under Cuomo, and my guess would be certainly under Newsom, it's cash. It's cash. Their leftist programs have pulled all the money out of the till, and this damn Wuhan 19 thing is tipping the coffers so that they're actually bleeding money. And hey, what a great Uncle Sam is if he gives us more money. Oh yeah, trillions, billions. Give us all your billions.
With Cuomo, I don't think it's money.
What do you think?
Power.
It's the power that motivates him?
Yeah, it's that he wants to be able to control things. And that's it. And sadly, his father wasn't a bad governor. He is. And I don't know if you know this, but his brother Chris?
Yes.
Who's on television?
Uh-huh.
The 2 of them share one brain.
Now, that's funny. That was funny. I liked that.
So you got to know when a decision is being made whether Andrew has the brain or Chris has the brain. Because if he makes a decision and Chris has the brain, we're screwed.
Well, the Cowardly Lion lacked courage. The Tin Woodsman wanted what?
A heart.
That's right. And that left the Scarecrow, who wanted
if I only had a brain.
If I only had a brain. Do, 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 do.
Exactly.
And here...
no, that's what I think really motivates him.
Well, the states... Okay. The state, however, go back a little bit where he was demanding that every ventilator in the nation apparently go to New York City. He hoarded medical supplies. He didn't listen to the report that was kicked out by his own state of New York saying, in anticipation of something like this, it would probably be in your and everyone's best interest if you were to stock up on ventilators. No, we're not going to pay attention to that. And millions spent on equipment that never arrived, a ship that arrived and was told to go away, and a ton of unused hospitals and beds. But how could that go wrong?
Exactly. But what they did to the Javits Center, the Javits Convention Center, which wasn't very filled. I mean, but he was doing that really to show his power over Trump. I really think so. That and, liberal New Yorkers are all complainers.
Well, that and the fact that everyone in the news media, what I call the American media maggots, were saying, don't listen to Trump. Let's listen to the daily briefing given by Governor Cuomo, because his briefings are they're wonderful. They're great. They're grounded. Oh, by the way, that Andrew Cuomo, what a great president he would make, except he's still in charge of New York City, as is de Blasio. where just today, a mother in front of her kid was placed in handcuffs after an altercation with the NYPD and the MTA. Those are the people like the subway cops, because she wasn't fully wearing her mask. Now, she was wearing her mask, but she wasn't fully wearing her mask in Brooklyn. And so police said that she wouldn't listen. But here's the deal. After all of this that I'm going to play for you, she wasn't arrested and charged. She was taken out of the station. Oh, if I were her, the money that I could get for you, oh my gosh, how wonderful that would be. So right now she's walking up the stairs with her kid. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 NYPD cops.
She got a kid with her.
And you can hear the bystanders say she's got a kid with her. Let me stop right here, because I'm going to talk about this in the second hour. Folks, how long, and Jeff, because this is a question for you too, Jeff, how long is this going to occur before the people that are watching police react like this decide that with a 30 to, say, 5 advantage, that all that cops are not going to be doing that anymore?
I think that the revolt is going to come from cops, because I don't think most cops want to be put between sick rules and the people they serve.
This is interesting because, and I'll go into this the second hour, the NYPD, PBA, the Police Benevolent Association, already put out a press release saying that they don't want to be placed in the middle politically between these two hot potatoes, between hotheads on the political side, for what is essentially now what may have been slightly a scientific issue, but science has nothing to do with any of this shit anymore. And the politics.
The the health minister of New York City, when they said they wanted to get more masks for the cops, they said, "Why do I give a damn about the cops?" True story.
No, I believe you. I'm going to have to leave this because we're getting kind of close. I wanted to have you weigh in on this. There's a story from a place I've never heard before called the Allgemeiner. The headline is, okay. The mayor says you Jews are getting us all sick. New York couple cite de Blasio during a violent assault in Brooklyn's Hasidim. A married couple who were arrested in Brooklyn after they attacked a group of Hasidic Jews in a bid to rip off their coronavirus protection masks reportedly cited New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio as justification during the assault. The couple yelled at the trio of men, Hasidic Jews, "You Jews are getting us all sick," according to police sources quoted by the New York Daily News, before adding, "The mayor says you Jews are the reason we're getting sick." Jeff?
I've never heard him say that. Okay, he said something about a bunch of Jews who went to a funeral.
Yes.
But he never said you Jews are getting us sick, I believe. However, it is a progressive thing to be anti-Semitic.
Yes, it is.
Okay, that's that's another reason for people not to vote for Democrats, unless you like anti-Semitism. But you know where the name Hasidim comes from, right?
No, tell me, please.
Two guys are walking down the street. They see a guy crossing the street with funny sideburns and the big black hat and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And he said, "What's that?" And he's Hasidim. He goes, "I see them too, but what are they?"
Okay.
Sorry, I had to.
All right. Well, I know. I understand. But here's another story that I want to get to before you go. I'm sorry. Did you have something else, Jeff?
Yeah, I want to. For when you have your second hour conversation, I want you, before that, you should read the story of, actually, I tweeted this to you, Greg Anderson, from the Seattle cop who's probably will get fired.
I am going to go into him. I'm going to go into a story from Lodi, which is south of Sacramento, about another officer that got fired. And I'm going to go into great detail where an attorney happens to analyze what it is that Gavin Newsom has, his edicts, and are they legal? Okay. Are they lawful? That's all in the second hour coming.
Great.
Before we do that, though, there's this article I found in the New York Post that I would also care to have your indulgence in, weighing in. Governor Cuomo, now we mentioned Governor Cuomo's response to placing hot virus people into nursing homes. And then, despite that, he was said, this is an article from April 22nd that I dug up. And I'm not making this up. It's all right there on the internet for everybody to see. Governor Cuomo said, quote, "It's not our job to provide PPE to nursing homes."
Yeah.
I was staggered.
Well, he really wanted Grandma and Grandpa to die.
Apparently so. And folks, we are becoming so jaded in this nation right now. I hate to use the word callous, but we hear things like this. And I submit 20 years ago. I'm sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
You and I were raised, to respect old people and actually learn from old people because they've been through it all.
Yes.
Progressives think that old people are in their way. It's a total different attitude.
Everybody gets old. Everybody dies.
Well,
shouldn't we all be treated equal?
Well, not everybody. I mean, Biden, I still make fun of for being senile. I have to. And did you see the New York Post cover today?
No, I did not.
It had a picture of Biden talking about the unmasking, and it said, "What did Joe know, and when did he forget it?"
The sad thing is, I can laugh at that. I really shouldn't, but I understand it completely. 2 months ago, maybe 2.5 months ago, I was poking fun like crazy at Joe Biden. And now I don't poke fun at him because it's just sad. He's being used like a tampon, like a Kleenex. Whenever his usefulness is done, they're going to kick him to the curb.
And I'm so surprised his family doesn't say so.
Why is his wife putting up with that? Why is his family supporting, propping him up, and saying, "Honey, I'll finish all your words for you"?
Because she wants to be first lady? I don't know why. It'll never happen, though.
That is so cynical, so callous, so cravenly cowardly to me. Don't people have a thought about others?
And what makes it worse is that they're letting him. Well, I never liked him, but they're letting him be publicly embarrassed as his last. As his last shine.
That's exactly how people are going to remember him. They're going to remember Bill Clinton for stains on a blue dress. And they're going to remember Biden for this. For dude's lost his marbles, couldn't make it in a presidential election. That's all they're going to remember. And somebody somewhere will say, wasn't he a vice president to somebody? No, he was a senator. Was he a senator? I don't remember.
Those last few fights that Muhammad Ali had when he got smacked around.
Yeah.
Well, he was never Muhammad Ali. But, by the way, that's not what I remember Bill Clinton for. I remember that he ruined a good Cuban cigar.
Okay. All right. Now, we have umbrage taken on two different and distinct areas, but I understand them both.
Right.
Completely. I get it.
But yeah, it's really sad. You know what's going to be sadder? It's going to be sadder when he has to debate Trump.
Okay, final question for you. Now that you bring this up, do you actually think it will get to the point where he will debate Trump?
Yeah.
You do?
If you asked me 2 weeks ago, I said he's not going to get the nomination.
Okay.
But he has no choice. They have no choice. They can't stick somebody else in because then they lose the Bernie voters. Okay. And who else can they get anyway? Hillary's not going to do it because it's such a long shot. She'll be embarrassed again. They're not going to have John Kerry do it because he can be beaten up. So who are they going to get to do it? Not Cuomo. He doesn't want it. Because along with being the scarecrow, he's also the cowardly lion. He would never do it.
So you don't think they'd reach deep down and pull somebody out like a Pocahontas or a Kamala Harris?
No.
Or an Abrams or and I don't mean the tank, although she's similar in nature.
Kamala Harris, she couldn't get the black vote. Think about that.
No, that is true. It's true.
Okay.
What planet does this stuff come from?
Warren, God. She's a socialist.
Yeah, and Bernie
Okay,
didn't vote
Stacey
today.
Abrams, please. She never won anything.
Yeah, she reminds me of the tank from which she's named.
Yeah, except that's a good tank.
It is.
Okay, so the only thing that she has is she knows how to complain that she really should have won, which Hillary did. So who are they going to do?
I don't know. I do not have. If I were the DNC, I don't have an answer. But the only people responsible for putting them in that position is themselves. Jeff DUNETZ, where can you be found?
www.lidblog.com. On Twitter, I am Yid with Lid. And don't look for me on Facebook because I'm banned for another 2 weeks.
Yeah, I was too. I got out, but I was
as
banned.
As Jackie Mason once said, those rotten bastards.
Those bad guys. Those are very bad guys.
It's really sad. And you know what? You go on to you have people on some of the media that they make you want to puke. They really make you want to puke.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's going to get a lot worse for them before it gets better. Tip of the iceberg.
But you know what? When he wins again, it's going to be so much fun.
Oh.
Because you won't be able to do anything.
Oh.
And do you remember the crying last time?
Yes. There's no crying in football.
Or politics. And I'm telling you, BZ, when that happens, then it's all gonna. They're really gonna go crazy.
Yeah, boy, won't they?
Because then they lost, and they really lost. I mean, you know why they're delaying this the opening up, right?
Oh, sure.
Why?
Well,
it's not just the economy.
Oh no, okay. It's to make sure that they do everything possible to slide old Joe in.
And if old Joe wins, okay, they're really worried about what's coming out next from Grinnell. They're worried, okay? And if they delay as long as they can, then come January 2021, if senile old Joe is in the White House, that ends, okay? Everything they said about Trump will remain. And that's what they're scared about. Because let me tell you something. Obama is part of it.
Oh, definitely. Oh, most definitely.
You know,
I'm going to have to jam. Jeff, I want you to come back because here's why. Between now and next week, I firmly believe that something more of great significance is going to emerge. And between now and next week, I want you and I to process that, and then maybe you can come back next Thursday night and we can talk about it. Because you and I have not even gotten into Flynn. We haven't really gotten into the FBI, anything like that.
Just one last thing. What I'm hearing, something's gonna come out tomorrow is what I'm hearing.
Oh, okay.
I
All right.
I don't know if that's true, but some people are saying that.
Okay, how about this? Can we agree to this, Jeff DUNETZ? If between now and Tuesday something of fairly significant import emerges, can I have you back Tuesday night?
I'm looking at, what do I have? Yeah, the 19th. Sure.
Okay.
But it's the Oregon primaries. You want to talk about that?
Well, yeah. Yeah. And
just hold on to your hats because tomorrow.
Oh God!
I don't know if it's true.
Governor Inslee is another piece of work.
Oh yeah.
All righty.
Absolutely.
I'll have you back if something major happens. I'll contact you way before that. So, folks, we may have Jeff back on Tuesday night. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Always a great pleasure to speak to Jeff DUNETZ. I'm going to just move right along. I'm not going to do the break because obviously I'm late for that, and I got somebody on the phone. So let me just go to this, what I normally do in lieu of a break, and remind everybody.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Kaiser, are you on the line, sir?
Oh, yes, sir. How are you doing, brother?
Real good. Great to see you here. Folks, this is Kaiser Schuff. He has been on the show any number of times. First, Jeff, thank you very much for being here tonight. I forget my manners, however, to all the people that are watching in Facebook Live. And Jack is in SHR chat, and Jeff is in SHR chat, the Alaskan, and Kaiser. Thanks to everybody. And Jeff says, thanks, guys, for listening. Always a great pleasure. What is on your mind, Schuff, Kaiser, one each?
Oh, well, first I'll point out the obvious. It makes me laugh. A man who knows he's a man but happens to be a homosexual whose balls clank when he walks is the one who has to walk the paperwork over to Justice, to Barr's hand.
Yeah, boy, that's
remember,
that's a little weird, isn't it?
Yeah, well,
it's like the only dude with balls, and I couldn't give a shit less if he's homosexual. I just enjoy the irony. Is Richard Grinnell, who does clank when he fucking walks, takes the information over to Justice after he declassifies it, and we find out exactly who the 39 named people are. Is that not glorious, Kaiser?
It is. It's awesome. And the way he walked in was like he just fucking knows. Your previous guest, Jeff, right?
Yes.
That was who it was?
Yeah.
He is spot on. I've been right about this entire thing that it was going to go back to Obama for years now.
Oh, you and I both. Does anybody within the sound of my voice, Kaiser including yourself, think that Obama was so silly, stupid, laissez-faire, and uninvolved that he didn't have his finger on every aspect of this because it was a major investigation? Strzok and Page sent emails back and forth saying that Obama wants to be in the loop of this, by the way, whatever it is that we happen to do or decide regarding POTUS. Hell yes, he was in the loop from the very beginning, at the top, in the Oval Office. Yes.
You better bet that Grinnell has been having people, they still have to redact certain things, but they are declassifying as we speak. So this is going to be a constant daily drip of the truth.
And isn't that glorious? And I say that's wonderful. That's like a Chinese water torture. And if you don't like me saying Chinese water torture, blow me. Because that's exactly what it is. It's a Chinese water torture that the Democrats, leftists, and American media maggots didn't mind happening to anybody that was pro-Trump, including Trump himself, for years. And to have this happen to them and wait with bated breath, mackerel or herring, I'm not sure which, wait with bated breath for another shoe to fall, I love it. Love it.
Well, here's the thing, BZ, and you know this when I'm talking about this. Here's how I look at this. Everybody's like, oh, well, Obama this, nobody's getting arrested, this, that, and the other. Oh, no, there's going to be indictments. I've been saying this. I said, but do not think it's going to get the big fish. And here's why I say this. People forget, we had 2 years of Republican Congress and Senate. What did the old rhinos do? Abso-fucking-lutely nothing about this when it started up.
Well, what were the 2 times when we were in charge of everything? The first one, I don't remember which regime, but I think it was in the early 1900s where the Republicans were in charge of the Oval Office, the House, and the Senate. The second only time in the history of history was during Bush. And during the point of absolute control, when the Republicans controlled the triumvirate, what did they do with it? And the answer is nothing.
Pissed it away. And that's the whole point of this. The rhinos, here's the thing. They need to keep, Mueller was there to keep the deep state alive. And they went after Flynn, point blank. I've said this numerous times, including on your show. They went after Flynn because he knew where the bodies are buried. Guess what's coming out? He knew where the bodies were buried. So, and now you have Sullivan, who actually has been decent on some cases, and now I'm starting to be concerned. I think he may have been a judge on the FISA court. So he's trying to desperately keep, because remember, the FISA court is secret. Only that woman's name has been leaked so far, the woman judge who did the Flynn thing.
Well, there's another one. Rodriguez was leaked too. He was one of the guys that was that had approved one time the original FISA warrant through the FBI. Yeah. Hey, I'm going to have to shift gears.
Okay.
I'm going to have to shift gears because I want to get on to my next topic here about law enforcement and freedom. If there's something that you want to weigh in with that, Kaiser, hit me back or anybody else that wants to call. Otherwise, I am not going to be able to get this in tonight. And I want to make sure that you folks hear about what I have to say. This is an opinion about Newsom's potentially unlawful edicts here in California. The reason I'm doing this tonight is so everybody else in every other state can be examining your own state codes of law to see if the assholes that are sitting in various governmental, governor, or mayoral seats are getting away with unlawful activity. So thanks for being here, Kaiser. I appreciate it. Now we go. Freedom and law enforcement. What are the laws these days? I played just before Jeff left a video, audio only on this show, of New York arresting a mom with her daughter, young child, for not wearing a mask, but for wearing it improperly. And if I had to say something about, that's not a good look. Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you exactly why it's not a good look. And I'm still persona non grata on a number of law enforcement sites. I keep having fights with my own people. I'm not changing my opinion, folks. It belongs to me, and I own it. And I have the luxury of owning it because I can pop off. I just wasn't a cop for a couple of years. I was a cop for 41 years, and I worked for 2 federal agencies and 2 state California agencies. Actually, counties. And that's why the fight continues. And it still perplexes me why it does. Now, I'm not speaking out of school when I say that this issue is tearing through, like I said, a number of law enforcement contingents on Facebook and a whole bunch of groups featuring retired and current law enforcement members. And they have vastly different opinions on the subject. And in my opinion, altogether, way too many of them are obviously, shockingly wrong. Wrong how? as in marching lockstep with whatever edicts are handed out by local mayors or state governors. I'm not going to enumerate the ton of reasons. I will go into some here tonight. I did so on my previous show last week. Go listen to that. I don't have a link here, but I believe it was on Tuesday night. I find this kind of thinking really disappointing, and frankly, it's a little bit shocking, and it's certainly disturbing. In my opinion, altogether, way too many law enforcement officers are willing to look at computers in their vehicles. They acknowledge a call with their fingertip, they respond, and go ahead and in my opinion, this is all my opinion, so I'm stopping saying that it's all my opinion because I already said it enough. They violate rights and don't seem to think anything of it, all in the name of what I call fear porn. 'Cause it is. And now, there's another reason for cops to continue violating your rights. We'll get to that before the end of this show. Okay, maybe some of that might have initially been semi-excusable about 3 months ago, when the numbers were kind of still rolling in, and yet really not very excusable when taken in overall context in terms of rights and freedoms in the United States of America. We as cops, we sign up for this stuff and we take an oath. Let's see, when was it? Oh, yeah. Last Thursday night for 2 hours, I spoke. When was that? The 7th. Last Thursday night, the 7th. I spoke completely about that for 2 hours. And after everything that occurred since then, I felt I had to come back and talk about it tonight because of more things that are occurring. And yet the hits and the foolishness just keeps on coming in. Now, understand, the bulk of what I'm addressing applies primarily to California laws. When I get into the legal aspect of it, yes, it will be dealing only with California laws. Always spell it with a K. The most recent indictment that set me up, that just set me off, the incident, and I think it set a lot of other people off, was in Fresno, California on May 10th, Mother's Day. There's something in the water in kind of the mid-valley of Sacramento, or of the Sacramento Valley, ranging to the San Joaquin Valley, where we're having stupid stuff going on. And so the article that came out said, police shove through crowd, arrest Mother's Day diners at a Fresno waffle shop. You can go find the audio. You can go find the video. The one I'm looking at right now is on YouTube, and it says at least 2 people were hauled away by police after law enforcement officers tried to enter a diner that was illegally opened in Fresno, California on Mommy's Day. The diners were waiting in the line outside the waffle shop. Officers ordered the diners to step aside so that they could enter. When they refused, the officers forcefully shoved aside patrons. It was during that confrontation at least 2 people were taken into custody. As I've said before, and I'll say again, because you can do a thing, or you think you can do a thing, should you be doing a thing? And it's a valid question. The officers are starting to approach. And the officers from Fresno are there to back up code enforcement. Code enforcement.
Make right. Let you in. We've been waiting for hours. We've been waiting for hours. You arrest me for what? You arrest me for what? Interference. I ain't interfering shit. I can say anything I want to. I'm not going to fucking do it. Hey, you don't arrest me. Hey, you don't.
So what do we have right now? Verbal. There's a big guy. He gets out of the way. And the big guy, he looks like he's about 6'3". He towers over the officer. He didn't strike the officer, and the officer is handcuffing him. He is not resisting. He's being moved away. And the people are not very happy. Okay, now that's that. Here's body cam from that Fresno PD waffle shop arrest from the Fresno Police Department. The officer's walking up to the waffle shop.
How you doing?
He's with a code enforcement officer. There's the code enforcement gal right there.
Okay.
Need to wait in line like everybody else.
All right. All right, folks. Make way.
Why? They don't have to let you in. They don't have to let you in. No, they don't. Waiting for hours. No, we do not. We've been waiting for hours.
Don't interfere with my job, okay? Do not interfere.
What?
For interfering, okay?
I ain't interfering.
Make a way, folks. Make a way.
What are you talking about?
Okay, when you listen to this stuff, always do what I call the logical extension down the line. What options were available to this officer? Continue.
Make a way. Clear away.
There's the big guy.
Put your hand on back for me. Put your hand there.
The big guy shrugs the officer off after the officer tries to grapple him. He didn't turn at the officer. He shrugged off his hand. That was it.
Put your hand on your back for me.
Then he submits to arrest.
That's right.
But you did assault me. I didn't do anything. Get that off.
Excuse me. Get out of the way, man. I'll take you to jail, too.
Okay, now in law enforcement, this is bad from any number of angles and any number of reasons. One code enforcement officer, one responding Fresno PD officer. Do you not sense or feel the temper of your police department? The temper of the people around you. That's your job as a cop to do that. Do you not listen or watch to social media? Do you not pay attention to news stories? This was an abortion on toast from the beginning, and here's why. Then I'm off to the races on a law enforcement group. So in this group, somebody writes, this is an officer writing. Now we're dealing with response on law enforcement Facebook groups. So I can't find the post where the video of my alma mater, Fresno PD, arrested a guy at a restaurant this morning. I watched the video earlier and only later decided to respond to it. What I saw was an officer meeting two code enforcement officers to make contact with the management of the restaurant, probably to cite them for a Muni code violation. As they walk up to the door, the crowd gets ugly. There's a guy blocking the door. That's the bigger guy. And the post says the big guy's about 6'3". He blocks the door as the crowd surrounds the officer and tells him he can't go in. The big guy also gives the officer some sort of forearm or elbow. Wrong. He didn't. He shrugged off his hand. I watched it. The officer arrests him. Now that's correct. I know the officer pretty well. He did everything by the book. The crowd and the tall guy were angry and things went downhill because of them, not the police. But wait. Oh, there's more on this. The officer is a good dude who does his job impartially, doesn't get jacked up easily. Don't judge until the facts are in. You may not like the fact that code enforcement was going to shut down the restaurant. Fine. In my opinion, the officer did his job the way he thought it needed to be done. I disagreed. And so after a number of comments, I wrote, maybe the guy, the officer, is a good guy. At this point, it's becoming immaterial. The numbers and the science aren't justifying these actions any longer. I retired as a cop after 41 years in law enforcement. As a sergeant, I would not have allowed my troops to be the COVID Gestapo. I can read and people can read. I smell bullshit and people smell bullshit. You forget the phrase, quote, with the consent of the governed at your own peril. I have a very definite feeling on this. So from that point, the fire was lighted. One deputy responded to my comment. The police are being used by the politicians to enforce poorly thought through directives. The public is getting more and more pissed off about these draconian measures, to contain the virus. What will result is civil unrest as the public grows more defiant against the politicians while the police get caught in the middle. Bingo. Well, actually, that's time for this. While the police get caught in the middle. It's a no-win situation for the police. Duh. By the way, I'm a retired deputy sheriff, and I'm catching a lot of flack from friends who see more and more intrusion on their civil liberties. As am I. But he's correct. Cops are catching crap for actions such as this. And I say, yeah, they should. And I wrote back, yeah, my point precisely. Then there was a response I hadn't anticipated, corroborating my thoughts. Another guy wrote, you might need to get your glasses checked. The guy he arrested never gave him a forearm or an elbow. That's correct. Watch the video. The officer reacted to a verbal challenge and got pissed off. There was no crime. Hope your buddy is ready for the lawsuit. Also ask your buddy how long it will be before gun confiscation gets ordered. Okay, and we're off to the races again. When I wrote, I've read on any number of law enforcement sites how, quote, politics like this are ruining these sites. Debatable. The overarching points in my mind are constitutionality and the Bill of Rights. That's the oath I took, not to a mayor, not to a governor, but to the U.S. Constitution. Because, as I said before, because law enforcement can do a thing, we always need to ask, are we doing the right thing for the right reason? It's, as I've said before, the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law. Discretion. Malum in se versus malum prohibitum. Stop. What is malum in se? Malum in se is a Latin phrase for something that is just inherently bad, that everybody knows is bad. Malum prohibitum is a law that everybody doesn't acknowledge is bad, but somebody says it's bad because it's written into a law. You see the difference between the two? Malum in se, everybody knows what's bad. Malum prohibitum is, the government says, close your business. Another individual began the thread and said back to me in response, and I knew this was going to come, so what would you have done, big fella? What would you have done if you were directed by your supervisor to assist code enforcement with her investigation? These days? Easy. I replied, I would have told my troops to code 4. That means cancel. Cancel the call. I would have gone over myself to look and listen. The city can send paper later. Is it worth getting my troops or citizens hurt over this when the number and the stats don't justify it? When I personally see the same thing happening at Costco or Save Mart or people standing in line for EEO? No. So when rational arguments don't work, as it didn't work with this one particular individual, as it doesn't work with attorneys, then what you do is you go for the ad hominem attacks. So the guy responded to me, so you worked in Sacramento County, one of the most pussified and liberal departments in California, where you need permission before you can make a request. Actually, he meant an arrest. I understand your response, but in real police work, things are a bit different. So to him, my 41 years meant nothing. Okay, but factually, again, he was sorely correct. And I responded, oh, you mean SAC PD, Sacramento Police Department, because historically, with the Sacramento Police Department, you do need the permission of an SPD sergeant to make an arrest absent exigent circumstances. Bing. Truth. Not so historically at the Sacramento Sheriff's Department, where I worked for 35 years, where myself and the others were granted trust and we utilized discretion, and we didn't require a sergeant's permission for any arrest. This is one of the many reasons that retired SAC PD officers came over to the SAC SO to work as annuitants, retired guys who could keep doing some common cop jobs, because as almost every retired SPD officer, SAC PD officer told me when I supervised EVOC, the Emergency Vehicle Operations course, if I'd only known that you guys treat officers like actual adults, I would have gone with you guys instead of SAC PD. Then another guy came back and wrote, funny, we never went with code enforcement people when they did their job. It wasn't our business enforcing health codes and such. Only time I ever responded to assist a code enforcement guy is when the place had a history of getting physical with the code enforcement officers, and I can't imagine that was the case here, but one never knows. Personally, with all the lies and deception coming from news scum, I would have on-viewed something en route and not gotten to be involved. This isn't about a virus. It's about the upcoming elections. So here's a cop that gets it. It's not about a virus. It's about the upcoming elections. Now we're getting closer to the crux of the biscuit, because here's another thought. Another officer weighed in. Where was the on-duty patrol sergeant? This would not have happened if those were my troops. This is not me talking. This is another supervisor talking on a cop Facebook group. I would have led the code enforcement officers through the back door, secured the front door after safely escorting the customers out the back door after they had finished their meals. And as soon as code enforcement was done, escorted him back to the vehicle. Sorry, folks, the Waffle House is closed until further notice. 10-8 clear, return to your beats. The same goon who hated me, he hated that response, so what he said was, back door locked, now what? So the response to the guy, not me, was, have dispatch call him and tell him to open the back door. If that doesn't work, have a unit borrow a crowbar from the fire department. Do I have to do all the thinking? Apparently. Boom! Shakalaka! More comments. We can all debate the officer's actions, activities, etc., but as I've read several comments on here referring to the officers as short shot, gnome, tweedledum, etc., it's disappointing that a few of their armchair warriors on here feed the need to denigrate an officer who is still out there wearing the badge, doing a difficult job. And there was another one. That officer is 5 feet 2 inches of fury. He is tough as hell, and any of you who denigrate him based on his size are dicks. Okay, I'm a dick. Maybe I'm a bag of dicks. Several comments later, there was a voice in the wilderness. The police should not have been involved in this issue at this level. Distrust and rebellion are growing, and involving our police is perceived as the overreaction that it is. Law enforcement cannot afford further erosion of respect and cooperation. Our collective security is at great risk, and anarchy is a result. Big Bird appeared to challenge the officer. I know nothing of him or his motives, but that can't be allowed. And there we have it, another comment. The officers did not have their heads in the game. I led patrol officers as their field sergeant for 26 years, and this was a clusterfuck from the get. They didn't follow the 5 Ps. Prior planning prevents piss poor performance. And then it went to this. Confiscation of lawfully possessed firearms? Better bring a body bag. Our neighbors, friends, and every citizen will ultimately be engaged in armed resistance. We'll be getting a taste of what that was like to be a redcoat in 1775. Sure, there's going to be cops and soldiers who will buy in and enforce such orders. I expect the majority will not. I know of none of the Marines I served with who would comply. And folks, that's exactly what I want to hear from law enforcement officers. There's another comment. The officer's a good dude who does his job impartially, doesn't get jacked up easily. I don't doubt that at all, but I bet his friends and colleagues would have said much about the Redcoats at Concord on April 19, 1775. Sometimes good guys follow bad orders and find themselves on the wrong side of history. Time will tell. Then there's another comment. Speaking for myself only, if I had to go out on a call to assist another city department, I just stood by to keep the peace. My dog wasn't in the fight over too many chickens or how tall somebody's grass was. That's their call. If things started going south, then I was in charge and I called the shots. But it wasn't worth the potential damage trying to force a hand over a Muni Code violation. Bing. The department involved could file a report with the city attorney and go about finding another solution. I'd back them, but I wasn't going to get my butt in a sling for them either. So, like I say, and by the way, folks, okay, I've obviously gone through the break. All I want to do is remind you of this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Like I said, you have to look further down the road. What are the ramifications of a call like this, particularly a Wuhan 19 call? Another person weighed in. They said the problem today is the police are in a no-win situation. They're expected to uphold the law, but in turn they're crucified by the press and the public who know nothing about the law or the situation. And another individual weighed in and said agencies need to step back and away from all this bullshit. You have people getting arrested and released, real crooks, not people trying to keep their business going and people hired, really. Going to arrest people on the beach or you're not social distancing and you're going to take them. Come on. My son, a combat Marine grunt, was hired by an agency. After seeing all this, the kid withdrew. Told him he wanted nothing to do with what they're doing, and he is back in the service. Then this dropped. I thought this was a law enforcement officer site. All the second guessing sounds like some of you need to be an IA. Really? Then another one responded. This is a cop. Really? Obviously, exactly. A bunch of self-righteous assholes. Me. I'm a self-righteous asshole. So I responded to that myself. Yeah, who follows the Constitution, Bill of Rights, honor their oaths, and don't blindly obey. So I guess I'm an asshole. A reply to me. Right, I'm sure when you were a cop in the 80s and some asshole mouthed off to you, you immediately thought of the Constitution, Bill of Rights, and walked away. Come on. Me? Apparently, you don't understand the difference between constitutional and unconstitutional. I am not somebody's political poodle, and this is all politics. These political mayors and governors can fight their own damn political wars. And then comes the ad hominem attack, which is, like I say, they know attorneys use when they have no argument. Apparently you forgot what it was like to be an officer. Easy for you to judge in retirement how badass you were and how you would have done it. Then one guy came to my defense. Hey, calling out a fellow officer for doing something stupid isn't anti-law enforcement. And so I wrote back, oh, please. This is all political bullshit that cops get placed into by fuckhead politicians, meaning it isn't getting my troops embroiled in. It isn't worth it. I go back to my original reasons above. Numbers, stats, and politics. And a little bit more common sense emerged from another officer. This reminds me of the time I had a Muni Code violation for loud music. The guy was ready to go to blows along with his party friends. I issued the ticket, noted the refusal, wrote a brief report. The city attorney later got upset with me and said I should have taken the guy to jail. So I asked this. I asked if they would have stood by me for a use of force complaint over loud music. The look on his face told me everything I needed to know. I did the correct thing. Cops are being pulled into a bad situation with this mess. Bingo. Thank you. Then there was another interesting comment making the distinction between a police department and a sheriff's department, which is what I've said for quite some time. Can't fault a city peace officer if he's ordered by a city-appointed police chief who must answer to city officials who order him to enforce unconstitutionally issued orders, codes, or statutes. Hold that thought. A county sheriff, on the other hand, is elected and answers directly to his citizens, and if he truly believes in the oath of office he swore to, he'll tell those communist-leaning officials, whether they be city, county, or state, that he will not enforce any unconstitutional statute or rule that violates the rights guaranteed to the citizens under the U.S. Constitution. Jeremy Hansen in Facebook chat. Good to see you again. Whether it be active military or active law enforcement, anybody who took the oath of office, which is a lifelong obligation, knows full well they do not have to carry out orders they know to be wrong, and in this case, an egregious violation of the rights of all Americans. And I'm going to go into that tonight. Except, I still fault the police department. It's politics, people. Backed, now that we are cognizant of so many other updates, by smoke and mirrors. The numbers and the stats, and even now the World Health Organization, the WHO, no longer backs the Chinese model. They now have selected the Swedish model. I know that sounds kind of lascivious. I'd select the Swedish model too, okay? That's just me. So on and on and on and on it goes. So here's an attorney. And I had to look hard and long to find this. Let's have an attorney weigh in specifically. Now, I'm not applying this to any other state. This deals solely with California, always spell it with a K, law. You're going to hear it from this guy, but there are some portions that I want to go over. California Government Code 8567 says all orders under the California Emergency Services Act got to be in writing, and they take effect immediately. When the governor calls a state of emergency, he may suspend any state statute, rule, or regulation. That's 8571. The governor does not have the authority to suspend the California Constitution. As such, any rights contained in the Constitution are still in force. In fact, to make sure the government understands that there are limits to their authority, California Government Code 8571.5 expressly states, nothing in the California Emergency Services Act gives the government the right to seize or confiscate any firearms or ammunition unless an officer is arresting someone pursuant to an investigation for the commission of a crime. Stop. I put that in there so that you guys in California know there are laws for this. I'm sorry, California always spell it with a K. And so what happened is this. On March 4th, this year, 2020, Governor Newsom declared a state of emergency. On March 11th, Governor Newsom's office published the fact that it was California Department of Public Health's policy of preventing gatherings of groups larger than 250 should be postponed. This was not an executive order by the governor. Instead, it was a California Department of Public Health policy. This policy does not cite a single law that gives the California Department of Public Health authority to shut down events of 250 people or require social distancing of more than 6 feet. Now, while these may be good guidelines to follow, they are simply policies. They are not the law. To emphasize that this was a policy and not a law, on March 12th, 2020, Newsom issues his next executive order, N-25-20, for all of you detailists out there. This executive order states all residents are to heed any orders and guidance of state and local public health officials, including but not limited to the imposition of social distancing measures to control the spread of COVID-19. So, this is where we get all legal and shit. Note the language of the order. All residents are to heed orders and guidances. Okay, so if you look up the word heed in the dictionary, you discover it means to give consideration and attention to. It doesn't say you have to obey. Gavin Newsom, in his executive order, utilizing his powers granted him after declaring a state of emergency, told the citizens of California, always spell it with a K, that Californians, always spell them with a K, should take the advice given by the California Department of Public Health into consideration when making decisions. Now, a really important part. Thus, contrary to what you may have been led to believe, Governor Newsom did not actually issue an executive order requiring Californians, always spell them with a K, to practice social distancing, nor did he actually order gatherings of over 250 people to shut down. All he did was order people to pay attention to what these organizations were saying. They were recommendations. Now understand, a policy is different from a regulation. While the attorney that you're going to hear later, while that attorney was able to find authority that allows the California Department of Health Services to issue emergency regulations after they jump through a few hoops, that attorney was unable to find where their policies would have the full force of law. This is critical. Listen to me, people. Folks, please. Understand a policy is different from a regulation. Laws are passed by the legislature or under the state of emergency via executive order by the governor. But we're not done yet. There is a specific California, always spell it with a K, health and safety section, 1010.40, permits local health officers to take any preventive measures that may be necessary to protect and preserve public health from any state of emergency declared by the governor. After a local health emergency has been declared, the sheriff of each county may enforce within the county all orders of the local health officer issued for the purpose of preventing the spread of any contagious, infectious, or communicable diseases. That's Health and Safety Code 101029. 101030 specifically gives the county health officer the authority to order quarantines. So the attorney then says, as one studies California law, it's clear the law used to be very explicit that a quarantine was only applicable to those who had a contagious disease or those who had come in contact with somebody who had a contagious disease. Now, with that, do you begin to understand and see why tracing is starting to become very important to governors and mayors, because my guess would be, don't know for a fact, this is only regarding California, always spelled with a K, law, but now they're talking about this. It's clear the law used to be very explicit that a quarantine was only applicable to those who had a contagious disease. While most of the laws regarding quarantine are very broad, California Health and Safety 120215 appears to have limiting language. The statute reads, upon receiving information of the existence of contagious, infectious, or communicable disease for which the department may from time to time declare the need for strict isolation or quarantine, each health officer shall, that means must, ensure the adequate isolation of each case and appropriate quarantine of the contacts and premises, follow the local rules and regulations, and all general and special rules, regulations, and orders of the department in carrying out the quarantine or the isolation. Finally, the quarantine laws are clearly intended to be applied to individuals, not the entire county. Stop. Let me read this again for you who just may have tuned in. The quarantine laws are clearly intended to be applied to individuals, not the entire county. The quarantine laws are designed to stop those who might have been infected from passing the disease onto others. Absent the local health officers finding that an individual has the disease or is likely to have the disease, California law does not give them broad authority to quarantine the entire county. As such, it appears counties such as San Francisco that have issued broad shelter-in-place laws may be violating California law. Now, there's some other instances that have come up, but those of you who may think that I'm speaking out of turn or I'm creating some of this stuff, here's an actual attorney weighing in on a portion of this.
My name is Mark Moisier, and I am a constitutional lawyer at the Dillon Law Group. I have been asked by numerous people to help them understand what is going on in the state of California regarding the shutting down of businesses and the sheltering in place laws. Does the governor really have the power to shut down private businesses? Do counties really have the authority to order everyone to stay at home? This video is my attempt to provide some basic understanding about the differences between martial law and the governor declaring a state of emergency. In this video, we will look at the California statutes, the governor's executive orders, and the subsequent county health orders of shelter in place. Hopefully, as we go through all these documents, you will gain a better understanding of what exactly is going on in this state. Because of all the misinformation and a lack of information regarding what is going on, if you find this video helpful, can I ask you to share this video on your social media?
The reason I'm going to this video, and I'll come back to it in a second, is I want this to be a location where if you have questions, you can refer people to this show, to this site, to this video. And that's why I'm doing it tonight. It's a reference point. Let me be plain and obvious. With altogether too many cops in these circumstances, they are taking what's happening, seen it before, done it myself. They're taking these calls personally. It becomes a personal affront. That's not how this works. Not with politics and politicians. Not with the criticality of what's going on all around the United States. Just not California. Always spell it with a K. And these politicians are altogether way too happy to allow cops to get caught in the middle so they can be kicked to the curb. You can be kicked to the curb at will. And that's already happened. And by departments, when faced with use of force complaints, they're not willing, many of them now are not willing to support their officers when they're correct. And they're failing to see the ramifications of their short-sighted decisions. That was my job as a sergeant, to cover my troops, to make sure they're doing the right thing for all the right reasons at the right time, and to make sure that people are safe and their rights are upheld. The ruling of the Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court, in Ex parte Milligan, 71 U.S.C. 1866, which stands to this day, Neither the legislature nor any executive or judicial officer may disregard the provisions of the Constitution in case of emergency. Section 98, therefore, anyone who declares the suspension of constitutionally guaranteed rights to freely travel, peaceably assemble, earn a living, freely worship, etc., and or attempts to enforce such suspension within 50 independent, sovereign, continental United States of America is making war against our Constitution and therefore we the people. They violate their constitutional oath and thus immediately forfeit their office and authority, and their proclamations may be disregarded with impunity, and that means everyone, including the government and president. Let me again say, for the stupid among you, and I said it before on the show, I'm not an attorney. Consult an attorney, not trying to be an attorney. What I am doing is providing you an alternative to the information that you're getting. And that's my job, to do the job the American media maggots won't do. I said this earlier with Jeff. Here's an organization that knows how to protect its troops against an absolutely classic no-win situation for law enforcement. The New York Police Benevolent Association. They came out with a memo. And this is a story from New York. NYPD union wants cops out of social distancing enforcement. The city's largest police union is demanding cops get out of the social distancing enforcement business while slamming New York politicians for releasing criminals, discouraging proactive policing, and leaving subways in chaos. The situation is untenable. The NYPD needs to get cops out of the social distancing enforcement business altogether. In a statement from Police Benevolent Association President Patrick Lynch, the cowards who run this city have given us nothing but vague guidelines and mixed messages, leaving the cops on the street corners to fend for ourselves, Lynch said. Nobody has a right to interfere with the police action, but now that the inevitable backlash has arrived, they are once again throwing us under the bus. Lynch was referring to a fracas that erupted as NYPD cops were trying to enforce social distancing rules over the past weekend. I think it was 2 weekends ago, in the East Village, and a cop was caught on video slapping and hitting a bystander who appeared to challenge him. Lynch added, the politicians are still watering down our laws, releasing real criminals and discouraging proactive enforcement of fair evasion and quality of life issues. As a result, our subways are in chaos, and we have hero nurses getting mugged on their way to our hospitals. When the weather heats up and the pandemic continues, if it continues to unravel, it may unravel our social fabric. Police officers should be allowed to focus on their core public safety mission. If we don't, the city will fall apart before our eyes, if only more organizations took this stance. And then remember the cop whose video I played last, I believe, Thursday. He talked to us about why it was, he spoke to other law enforcement officers about why it was critical that law enforcement officers obey the Constitution. And so guess what? Well, he got fired.
I'm sure you remember the video of this officer who spoke out against the tyranny and basically told every single cop if they didn't stop, violating people's rights, they were going to wake up the American people, which he called a sleeping giant. Well, guess what happened to him?
So I just kind of wanted to take a couple minutes, get everybody caught up to speed on what's going on in my life. I've been getting a lot of questions, and figured I'd just make a second video and answer some of the things that I've been receiving. I first wanted to say I'm humbled by the response that my video got. It's been viewed millions and millions of times. People all over the country have been calling me, texting me, sending me emails, comments, and the overwhelming majority of it has been positive. And so I think that's pretty cool, because my whole thought process on making that video was trying to bridge the gap between law enforcement and the public. And I've seen both sides with open arms willing to embrace that. And I think that's a step in the right direction. So that's pretty cool. One thing that I've seen come up over and over in the comments, and I've been in emails sent to me, is, are you going to get in trouble? what happened to you, or is there any discipline or any discipline taking place? And so I figured I'd take a chance and give you a little synopsis of the last 3 days of my life after posting that video. So I posted the video on Tuesday, was it May 5th? And it took it took a day or two before it really started getting a lot of traction. But the next morning when I woke up on the 6th, I think it was only at a few thousand views. And I had received a message from my command saying, "Wow, Greg, what a powerful message. We agree with that 100%.
Okay, now, listen to the difference between, yeah, we support you, and we're going to get rid of your ass. Be very careful listening to the delineation between the two.
Well done." And that was actually a relief for me, because I was like, great, I know that it's risky putting something out like that, but I felt like it was so grounded in integrity and liberty that no one would have an issue with it. So that was a relief.
Well.
And then fast forward 3 hours later, I get another phone call from my command, and it said, hey, Greg, the video's up to 400,000 views. It's time to pull the plug on this thing. And I immediately, it kind of caught me off guard, because I said, why would we want to pull the plug on something that was already acknowledged as a good and powerful message from one law enforcement officer to others? And I said, yeah, that doesn't really make sense to me. I think maybe we should embrace this message and we should share this with other officers. And he said, listen, it's not up to me. I have been directed to tell you to take the video down, and I need to know if you're going to take the video down.
This officer did make a critical mistake. I'll talk about that in a bit.
And I said, no, I can't take the video down. Because if you listen to my first video, the whole message that I was trying to share with people and impart on them is, if you believe in something in your heart, you have to stand by that conviction, even if it costs you everything. And like I said last time, I have 3 little kids.
Stop. How many people that you know of in your life have a conviction like this?
I have this house. I have another house. I cannot afford to lose my job. But after putting that message out there and sharing that with America, and it was so well received, I can't then just say, even though that's what I believe, I'm going to take a step back, I'm going to retract my words, and I'm going to allow my command to prevent me from sharing my heart and my truth. And I said, so with that in mind, sir, I can't take the video down. And,
literally, that's disobeying an order. Let me tell you up front, his mistake. His mistake was, number 1, being in a cop car. Number 2, being in a uniform. Even though you didn't see the patch, you could see his name, and then on his hat or beanie, whatever it was he was wearing, you could see the initials MPU. That was his initial mistake. However, that having been said, if he recorded this video at home on his own time, clearly, there would be persons in police departments who would still take umbrage to this, though him wearing a uniform or not wearing uniform would not be a panacea to many departments for the actions that subsequently occurred.
I didn't know where this was going to go, and I immediately started thinking about, what are they going to try and gig me on? What did I do wrong? What policy did I violate? Yep. And I got called back a couple hours later, and by this time, it was skyrocketing. Everyone in the agency was seeing it. Cops from when I was an officer down in Los Angeles, they were contacting me. I got a call, and it said, listen, the video needs to be taken down right now, and you need to accept a letter of reprimand. Or we're going to take a very different approach to this if you say no again. Well, I'd already put myself...
Okay, now recognize this was a choice. He did have a choice. His command staff gave him a choice.
On that hill, and I had to be willing to die on that hill. They said they determined the video was a violation of policy, and that if I wouldn't take it down, that allegations would be made against me, and so on and so on. And so I told them, no, I'm not going to take it down. You do what you need to do, but the principle of it is rooted in truth, and it was a positive message that was received by millions and millions of people. If you want me to take it down, I have to respectfully refuse. And it was interesting because they kept citing different policies, like, oh, it was the social media policy, or some of your equipment may have been identifiable. And that kind of seemed like a moot point to me, and it was strange because...
Okay, but that's exactly the petard they're going to hoist you on. And so other law enforcement officers, they know this throughout their other agencies. Are the clouds starting to part for you yet, folks?
Why was the message okay at 5 a.m., and then 3 hours later, there was a problem with it? And so...
Yes.
I was later contacted by the chief of police.
Why?
He's someone that I have great respect for. He's a good man to work for. And he's the one that shot me straight. And he said, Greg, if you openly defy your governor, you can't be a police officer in the state of Washington. And I told him, I said, you know what? I can respect that. And if I were in your office, I would shake your hand, respectfully disagree, and say, maybe I'm not meant to be a police officer in the state of Washington then. And here's my thoughts on that, okay? You have to do your research.
Folks, who the hell has scruples that you know of like this guy?
You have to figure out what your true north is, what your truth is, and where you stand on issues. For me personally, I believe that the Constitution supersedes all other documents, all other laws. There's case law supporting that. If you look at Marbury versus Madison, 1803, it says any future laws created that are repugnant, meaning in conflict with the Constitution, are null and void. So when I look at how I feel comfortable enforcing the law, and I see people exercising constitutional rights, it doesn't matter if there's different executive orders, requests from mayors, requests from governors. To me, the Constitution supersedes that, and I'm going to stand with the people.
Yes.
Well, unfortunately, higher up in all agencies, there's a political game being played, and now I am on a administrative leave status pending termination.
Okay, this is where we're going to stop. I haven't done any promos for quite a while, but I just want to remind everybody of this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And I should tell you that this police officer, and it shouldn't surprise you, works for an agency in Washington, the state of Washington, near Seattle.
I was told by both the agency and the union that I was asked to take it down, and I refused. So that's refusing a direct order. It's an insubordination charge, and it will result in me ultimately being let go from the agency. And I said, you know what? If that's what you guys have to do, if that video is so bad that you want to take my career from me, and you want to leave my, potentially take my ability away to provide for my family because of that video, do it. Because I'm going to stand by my convictions, just like I said in my last video. So yeah, it's weird, how fast your life can change in a week. It's something that I never thought would happen. I never thought that I would make a video that would resonate with millions of people. But, my head is held high. I'm not intimidated or upset by how this played out. Like I said in my last video, man, I fought in the streets of Ramadi during 2004.
Okay, do you understand this guy's a soldier? If I'm not mistaken, he's a Marine. And I think he's going to tell you that. I have more respect for this one guy than about 99.8% of all the politicians in America. This guy has a true north. He has a compass bearing. And he is holding on to it. I wish I could get this guy on the show. Oh, my God. You know what? I'm going to try. Maybe I can. Maybe I won't. But I'm sure as hell going to try.
2004 and 2005, I came to terms long ago that my convictions and my beliefs may cost me everything up into my life. And even though it's 15 years later and I'm a police officer in Seattle, Washington, that truth still remains for me. So I don't have an option to back down or feel sorry for myself or give in and say, you know what, I got kids and I think I'm just going to take the letter. No, if they want to do me like this for standing up for liberty, they can do that. I'll leave you guys with this. It's on to the new adventure for me. I've been doing different things my whole life, and I'm actually excited, to tell you the truth. If you know of anyone accepting resumes, hit me up, because I might need it in the near future. But, I've always wanted to circumnavigate the globe on a sailboat, so maybe it's time to chase that dream. Anyways, I appreciate all the support, guys. Take care.
What an amazing dude. What an incredible soul. Would you have done that? Would I have done that? I wasn't put in that position, but I can only believe that I would have to. I put myself in the way of administrations before, my alleged superiors before. I was told by an alleged superior that I would never make lieutenant from sergeant because of what I did. I can't really tell that story here, but I'll tell it to you privately all day long. Then this happened in California, in Lodi, California. Always spell it with a K. Lodi police officer says he was fired for refusing to enforce stay-at-home orders. Lodi, California is kind of the twain between the Sacramento Valley and the San Joaquin Valley, kind of in the middle of California in the Agribelt. A Lodi police officer says he was fired for not enforcing the state's stay-at-home order. In the past 24 hours, his community has raised literally thousands of dollars to support his family. Former officer Jordan Duncan only worked with the police department of Lodi for 4 months. The details of the incident aren't clear, but I will tell you them in just a moment. But city officials confirmed an April separation date. This is May. He's fired. He's gone. He's done. He's toast. They would not go so far as to say that Duncan was fired. Officials did point to a recent ruling which calls the stay-at-home order lawful and said police officers can't choose which laws to enforce. Okay, that last paragraph, folks, wrong. Cops have been using discretion in terms of which laws to apply and when for literally over a century. Wrong. Now, two aspects the article fails to point out are that, one, what happened is that he fronted off the chief of police in a briefing, telling him in a briefing what he would and would not do. The other aspect that's critical to this is, number two, that this guy Duncan belonged, past tense, to the easiest class of person in the world to fire. He'd been on the job for 4 months. That means he was on probation. So technically, they didn't fire him. All they did was let him go. So this just in. This is a recent little ray of light from Fresno County. Now, the issue I told you about earlier was with Fresno City, the city of Fresno. This is from Breitbart. Fresno County Sheriff won't enforce stay-at-home orders, too busy rearresting freed criminals. Fresno County Sheriff Margaret Mims said Tuesday, 2 days ago, that she would not be able to enforce Governor Gavin Newsom's stay-at-home orders because she was too busy rearresting accused criminals set free under the state's new $0 bail policy. Mims appeared on the Trevor Carey show discussing, oh God, would I love to have her on my show, discussing the challenges facing law enforcement during the coronavirus pandemic, as well as the economic hardship. She pointed out that government employees were also vulnerable to the economic damage because the decline in tax revenues meant state and local governments are going to have to cut services. That's true in California, always spell it with a K, and that's going to be true wherever you live, too. Carey asked her, I've heard multiple sheriffs around the nation state they will not enforce their governor's shelter-in-place orders. Is that your position? So Sheriff Mims, she said, that is my position. We do not stop the public to find out what they're doing when they're not sheltering in place. We don't ask those questions. We don't ask if they're essential. We've got our hands full trying to rearrest people that are released due to a $0 bail. So we've got other things that are on our mind that are more important than stopping normally law-abiding citizens. Fresno County officially now has a good sheriff. So it is, to me, abundantly clear that two camps have emerged in law enforcement. And I'll be blunt, I'm on the right side. First, there is the strict, we follow the orders and directives all the time camp. And the other, like mine, who insist there are overarching issues that we shouldn't be ignoring, like the rights and freedoms we as peace officers are sworn to uphold. The U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, no matter the circumstances. I don't seem to recall in my oath when I took it that there was a timeout, it's the flu clause in any of those documents. The bottom line is there's no doubt that I am fervently convinced of this. This is a proverbial dry run for leftists and Democrats to push the envelope and see what it is that you, the average American citizen, will tolerate in terms of having your freedoms and liberties removed. Do they only have to provide some kind of a safety crisis for you to cave in and fold, to like fold yourselves into your desk in the fetal position and cry? Boy, do I have a video for you on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday night, about that. I mean, you know what? I think we're starting to see those issues right now. We're starting to see the answers right now. We can't allow law enforcement to be wedged into political issues like this because we have to do what I have always called the logical extension. Don't think 1 inch in front of your face. If law enforcement will willingly obey fear porn right now, what are they going to do when they're ordered to confiscate firearms from American citizens or remove any other American freedom? Should leftists, and I will say when leftists return to power, because they will someday, and just as leftists and Democrats say, nah, we're not coming for your guns. Wrong. They now state openly they're coming for our firearms. That's just one aspect. That's just the Second Amendment. There's the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the 10th Amendment, ad nauseum. Don't think they're not coming for all of that too. Doing again what I call the logical extension. That means they are coming eventually for all of your rights. Every little thing they can steal. So if you stand there complacently and you allow it, you're going to get it. But wait, what happens when one day, like Pastor Niemöller said, you're left? Oh, yeah, and what happens if you have no firearms? Yeah, you are going to have to stand there, whatever they dish out, you're going to have to take it and allow it. Now, I wish I could say I knew for a fact that all law enforcement officers are not going to act unconstitutionally. I can't. And I have to tell you right now, that is so foundationally disturbing to my very core, because I'm a witness now to everything that has occurred up to this point.
Monsieur has been locked!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network. If you want to contact me, you can find me on Twitter at BZEP, B-Z-E-P. Tiaras are by My Little Pony.
Smile.
Thanks to my personal KC-135 Okay, booted that one. And thanks to Jeff DUNETZ for being here in the first hour. Thanks to everybody for listening live. Thanks to everybody who was in chat and Facebook, and also in the chat at SHR Media. Everybody have a great weekend. More crap is going to drop. You and I both know it. More crap is going to happen. More crap is going to come out. And I'll be back Tuesday night. Oh, God, do I have some great videos on Tuesday. But I couldn't fit into the show tonight. OMG. Holy moly. Have a great weekend. Stay with your loved ones. God bless you all. Take care. Be safe.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.